The morning sun cast long shadows across the dusty main street of Red Rock, New Mexico territory. It was May of 1884, and the heat was already building, promising another scorching day. Clara Whitmore stood on the wooden platform erected in front of Morrison's General Store. Her 7-year-old son Ethan pressed against her side, her hands, roughened from years of washing and mending, trembled as she clutched the boy's small fingers. The crowd gathering below was a motley collection of ranchers, miners, drifters, and townspeople. Some had come out of curiosity, others with darker intentions written plainly across their weathered faces. Clara recognized many of them, people she'd served at the boarding house, men her late husband Samuel had done business with, women who'd once nodded politely at church. Now they stared up at her with a mixture of pity, indifference, and something worse that made her stomach turn. "Mama, why are we standing up here?" Ethan whispered, his voice barely audible above the murmur of the crowd. His blue eyes, so like his father's, were wide with confusion and fear. Clara couldn't bring herself to answer. How could she explain to her child that they were about to be sold like cattle, that the debts left by his father's death, killed 6 months ago in a dispute with land grabbers, had stripped them of everything? The small homestead? Gone. Their meager savings, exhausted on Samuel's burial and the mounting bills. Even the boarding house position she'd taken to make ends meet couldn't cover what they owed to Morrison's store and the bank. Judge Harrington, a thin man with a face like dried leather, stepped forward with a sheaf of papers. He cleared his throat, and the crowd quieted. "By order of the Territorial Court, and in settlement of debts totaling $347, we hereby commence the indenture auction of Clara Whitmore, aged 27, widow, and her minor son, Ethan Whitmore, aged 7. The words hit Clara like physical blows. Indenture auction, a prettier term for what it really was. She'd seen it happen before to other desperate souls, but never imagined she'd stand here herself, reduced to property to be bid upon. "The woman is healthy and strong," the judge continued, reading from his papers with the same tone he might use to describe a horse. "Skilled in cooking, sewing, washing, and general household management, has experience in nursing and can read and write. The boy is also healthy, trainable, and of good temperament." Someone in the crowd laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. Clara's cheeks burned with humiliation, but she kept her chin high. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. "Not here, not in front of Ethan. The auctioneer, a fat man named Doyle, who reeked of tobacco and whiskey even from a distance, stepped up beside the judge. His small eyes glittered with the anticipation of profit. "All right, folks, let's start the bidding. These two can be purchased together or separate, though together would be more practical for household service. Who'll give me $50 for the pair?" Clara's heart nearly stopped. Separate. They could be separated. Her arm tightened around Ethan, pulling him closer. The boy buried his face in her worn calico dress, his small body shaking. $40 for the woman alone," called out Jake Brennan, who owned the Lucky Strike Saloon. Clara knew his reputation. The girls who worked his establishment had hollow eyes and bruised arms. Terror clawed at her throat. "50 for both," countered Mrs. Wellington, the banker's wife. She needed household help. Clara knew, but she was also known for her cruel tongue and heavy hand with servants. "60 for the woman." Brennan again. His lips curled in a smile that made Clara's skin crawl. "Please," Clara whispered, though she knew no one would hear her plea. "Please, God, don't let them take my boy from me." The bidding continued, voices calling out numbers that would determine their fate. Each bid was a reminder of how far she'd fallen, from a respectable married woman to this, standing on a platform like livestock at market. $75 for both, and that's generous for a widow past her prime and a boy too young for real work. This from Carl Patterson, who ran a mining operation in the hills. His workers were known to die young from the dangerous conditions. "The woman's not past her prime. Patterson," Brennan shot back with a leer. "I'll give 80 for her alone. Let someone else take the brat." Ethan whimpered, and Clara felt something fierce and primal rise within her. She found her voice, hoarse but clear. "Please, I'll work twice as hard if you keep us together. I can cook, clean, mend your clothes, tend your animals. I'll teach the boy to help. We'll earn our keep. I swear it. Just please. He's all I have left." Her words fell into a moment of silence. Some in the crowd shifted uncomfortably, perhaps remembering their own families, their own children. But Jake Brennan only laughed. "Hear that, boys? She'll work twice as hard. That's exactly what I'm counting on." He spit tobacco juice into the dust. $90 for the woman. Final offer." The auctioneer's eyes gleamed. $90 from Mr. Brennan. Do I hear 95? $90 going once. Clara's knees felt weak. She could see her future in Brennan's saloon, could see Ethan shipped off to who knows where, maybe to Patterson's mines, maybe to something worse. Some of the orphan trains took children west, she'd heard, to families that used them like slaves. Her beautiful, gentle boy who still believed in happy endings to the stories she told him at night. "Going twice." She pressed her lips to Ethan's hair, breathing in his little boy scent of dirt and sunshine and innocence. "I love you," she whispered. "No matter what happens, remember that Mama loves you." Sold to $250 for both, and they stay together. The deep voice cut through the crowd like a knife through butter. Every head turned toward the back of the gathering, where a lone figure sat atop a black horse. Clara couldn't see his face clearly beneath the wide-brimmed hat, but she could feel the authority radiating from him like heat from a forge. The crowd parted as he rode forward, and Clara got her first clear look at him. Tall in the saddle, broad-shouldered, with the bearing of a man who'd seen his share of hardship and come out the other side. His face was weathered but not old, maybe 35 or 40, with deep-set gray eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. He wore the clothes of a working rancher, worn leather chaps, a plain blue shirt, a gun belt that had seen use but wasn't worn for show. Caleb Turner. She knew the name, though they'd never met. He owned the Triple Creek Ranch, 15 miles outside of town, a widower himself, they said, who kept to his land and his own business. His wife had died of fever 3 winters back, leaving him to run the substantial spread alone. The auctioneer sputtered. "Mr. Turner, well, that's quite a sum. Sir, quite a sum indeed. Do I hear 260? Silence. Even Jake Brennan seemed struck dumb by the amount. It was more than triple what anyone else had bid. More than many men saw in a year. $250. Going once. Going twice. Sold to Mr. Caleb Turner. The crowd erupted in whispers and speculation. Clara stood frozen, unable to process what had just happened. Ethan peeked out from her skirts, staring at the man who had just purchased their lives. Turner dismounted with the easy grace of a natural horseman and walked to the platform. Up close, Clara could see the lines around his eyes, the slight gray threading through his dark hair. His expression was unreadable as he looked from her to Ethan and back again. "Ma'am," he said, touching the brim of his hat. His voice was the same deep rumble that had silenced the crowd. "Boy." Clara found her voice, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. "Sir, I don't understand." "Why would you pay so much?" He studied her for a long moment, and she thought she saw something flicker in those gray eyes. Understanding, perhaps, or recognition of a kindred spirit who'd known loss. "Because I've got a ranch that needs tending and no one to tend it," he said simply. "And because a boy needs his mother." He glanced at Ethan, and his hard expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Every boy needs his mother." Judge Harrington bustled over with the papers. "Mr. Turner, if you'll just sign here, and here, very good. The terms of indenture are for 2 years, with option to extend or release based on, I know the terms. Judge." Turner's voice carried a note of dismissal that made the judge step back. He turned to Clara. "Can you ride?" Yes, sir, a little." "Good. We've got a long way to go before dark." He paused, seeming to consider something. "Have you eaten today? Either of you?" Clara's pride wanted to lie, but Ethan answered for them. "No, sir, not since yesterday noon." Turner's jaw tightened. Without another word, he strode to his horse and pulled something from the saddlebags. He returned with a cloth-wrapped bundle, which he handed to Clara. The smell of fresh bread and dried meat made her stomach clench with hunger. "Eat while I get a wagon arranged. Can't have you walking 15 miles on empty stomachs." He turned to go, but Clara caught his sleeve. He looked down at her hand, then up at her face, one eyebrow raised in question. Mr. Turner, I need to know, what do you expect from us?" "I meant what I said. I'll work hard, harder than any two people. But my boy." She swallowed hard. "I need to know he'll be safe." Turner was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was gruff. "I expect a day's work for a day's wage. Ma'am, I expect honest labor and honest dealing. The boy will have chores suited to his age and schooling when we can manage it. You'll have your own quarters, decent food, and fair treatment. That's what I expect, and that's what I offer. And when the indenture is over, then you're free to go where you will. Though by then, I hope you'll have found reason to stay." He gently removed her hand from his sleeve. "Now eat. You're no good to me if you faint from hunger on the road." As he walked away to arrange transportation, Clara sank down onto the platform, her legs finally giving out. Ethan crawled into her lap, and she wrapped her arms around him, the bundle of food pressed between them. "Is he a good man?" "Mama?" Ethan asked in a small voice. Clara watched Caleb Turner's broad back as he spoke to the livery owner, gesturing toward them. She thought of Jake Brennan's leering face, of the alternatives that had been mere seconds away. She thought of the gentleness in Turner's voice when he spoke of boys needing their mothers. "I think maybe he is, sweetheart," she whispered, pressing her cheek to Ethan's hair. "I think maybe God heard our prayers after all." The wagon rolled to a stop in front of the Sunset Inn, Red Rock's only respectable lodging house. Clara helped Ethan down from the back, her muscles stiff from the tension of the morning's ordeal. Caleb Turner had barely spoken during the short ride from the auction platform. His attention focused on handling the borrowed wagon and team. "Wait here," he said, wrapping the reins around the brake handle. "I need to settle some business before we head to the ranch." Clara watched him stride into Morrison's general store, his purposeful gait reminding her that this man now held papers declaring her and Ethan his property for the next 2 years. The food he'd given them sat heavy in her stomach, kindness and captivity mixing uneasily. "Mama, my feet hurt," Ethan whispered, shifting his weight. His worn shoes, patched too many times already, were coming apart at the seams. "I know, sweetheart, just a little longer." She smoothed his unruly brown hair, noting how long it had grown. Samuel had always trimmed it on the first Sunday of each month. So many little rituals lost with his death. Turner emerged from the store carrying a large bundle. Without explanation, he loaded it into the wagon bed, then turned to them. "Come on, we're eating a proper meal before we travel." The Sunset Inn's dining room was nearly empty at this mid-afternoon hour. Mrs. Chen, the proprietor's wife, looked surprised to see them. Her expression shifted to something like sympathy when she recognized Clara. "Mr. Turner," she greeted cautiously. "What can I bring you?" 3 full meals. Whatever's hot and ready, and coffee." He glanced at Ethan. "Milk for the boy." They sat at a corner table, Ethan wedged between Clara and the wall, still clinging to her hand. The silence stretched uncomfortably until Mrs. Chen returned with steaming plates of beef stew, cornbread, and boiled greens. Ethan's eyes widened at the bounty. He looked up at Clara, silently asking permission. When she nodded, he fell upon the food with the single-minded focus of a hungry child. Slowly, "Ethan," Clara murmured, "you'll make yourself sick." Turner watched the boy eat with an unreadable expression. When's the last time he had a full meal? Clara's pride flared, but exhaustion smothered it quickly. "We've been making do. The boarding house where I worked provided 1 meal a day. But after Mr. Morrison called in the debts. How long ago did your husband die? The directness of the question caught her off guard. 6 months. He was trying to protect our water rights when Hampton's men... She stopped, aware that Hampton was a powerful man with friends throughout the territory. I know about Hampton. Turner's voice was flat. Lost some good neighbors to his land grabs. They ate in silence after that, broken only by the scrape of spoons against bowls and Ethan's occasional contented sigh. Clara forced herself to eat slowly, though hunger clawed at her insides. She'd learned to go without so Ethan could have more, but the boy was still too thin, his growth stunted by months of scarcity. When their plates were empty, Turner pushed back from the table. Mrs. Whitmore, I need to be clear about something. Clara braced herself, pulling Ethan closer. I didn't buy you, he continued, his gray eyes steady on hers. I bought your debt. There's a difference. You'll work for your keep and to pay down what's owed. But you're not slaves. When the indenture's complete, you're free to go wherever you choose. Why? The word escaped before Clara could stop it. Why pay so much for 2 people you don't even know? Turner was quiet for a long moment, his weathered hands wrapped around his coffee cup. My wife died 3 years ago. Fever took her in the space of a week. Before she passed, she made me promise something. He paused, his jaw working. She made me promise not to let the ranch die with her, to keep it alive, keep it a home. He looked at Ethan, who had stopped eating to listen with the intense focus children gave to adult conversations they didn't fully understand. A ranch without people is just land. I've got hired men, good ones, but they have their own places to go at night. The house has been empty too long. He stood abruptly, as if he'd said more than intended. We'll leave in 20 minutes. There's a necessity out back if you need it. After he left, Clara helped Ethan clean his face and hands with her handkerchief. See, she whispered. I told you he might be a good man. He looked sad. Ethan observed with a child's blunt honesty, like you do sometimes when you think I'm not watching. Clara's throat tightened. Sometimes grown-ups carry sadness, sweetheart, but that doesn't mean we can't find happiness again. Outside, Turner had loaded additional supplies into the wagon. The bundle from Morrison's store had been joined by sacks of flour, coffee, and other staples. He helped them up onto the wagon seat, Clara in the middle with Ethan on her right, protected from the sun by her body. The road out of Red Rock was rutted and dusty, winding through scrub brush and stands of cottonwood. Turner handled the team with practiced ease, occasionally pointing out landmarks to Ethan, who gradually relaxed enough to ask questions. Is that a real eagle, Mr. Turner? Golden eagle, boy. See how the sun catches its wings? They nest in the cliffs near the ranch. Might show you where, if you're interested. Yes, sir. Ethan's enthusiasm broke through his earlier fear. I've never seen an eagle nest before. Clara felt some of her tension ease. Turner spoke to Ethan like a person, not property. It was more than she'd dared hope for. The sun was beginning its descent when Turner pulled the wagon to a stop beside a small creek. Need to water the horses and stretch our legs. Still got 5 miles to go. He helped them down, his hands careful and impersonal. While he tended the horses, Clara led Ethan to the creek's edge. The water ran clear and cold over smooth stones. Can I take my shoes off, Mama? Just for a minute? She glanced at Turner, who nodded. Go ahead, but stay where I can see you. Ethan whooped with joy, yanking off his deteriorating shoes and socks to wade into the shallow water. His laughter echoed off the rocks, a sound Clara hadn't heard in months. He's a good boy, Turner observed, coming to stand beside her. Polite, well-spoken. You've done well by him. His father insisted on education, said it was the only thing that couldn't be taken away. She watched Ethan chase minnows, his pants rolled up to his knees. Samuel was wrong about that. As it turns out, everything can be taken away. Not everything, Turner said quietly. You're still his mother. He still has you. Before Clara could respond, the sound of approaching horses made Turner stiffen. His hand moved to his gun belt as 3 riders appeared around a bend in the trail. Clara recognized them immediately. Jake Brennan and 2 of his saloon regulars. Well, Brennan drawled, reining in his horse. Turner, isn't it? Heading home with your new purchases? Brennan. Turner's voice carried a warning. You've got no business on this road. Public road. Last I checked. Brennan's eyes fixed on Clara with an expression that made her skin crawl. Just wanted to make sure the lady knows she's got options. That's a lot of money Turner paid. Ma'am, might be he expects more than cooking and cleaning for that price. Clara felt Turner tense beside her, but his voice remained level. The lady and her son are under my protection. That's all anyone needs to know. Protection? Brennan laughed. An ugly sound. That what they're calling it now? One of his companions, a rat-faced man Clara knew as Dobbs, leered at her. Seems a waste. A pretty widow like that cooking and cleaning. I bet Jake would have found better uses. Turner moved so fast Clara barely saw it. One moment he was standing beside her. The next, he dragged Dobbs from his saddle and slammed him into the dirt. His knee pressed into the man's back. One hand twisted in his collar. You want to finish that sentence? Turner's voice was deadly quiet. Because if you say one more word about this woman or her boy, I'll feed you to the coyotes, piece by piece. Easy, Turner, Brennan said, but his bravado had cracked. Dobbs didn't mean nothing by it. Turner released Dobbs, who scrambled back to his horse, gasping. Get off my road and spread the word. Anyone who bothers Mrs. Whitmore or her son answers to me. Clear. Crystal. Brennan spat, wheeling his horse around. But this ain't over, Turner. You can't protect them forever. After they'd gone, Clara realized she was shaking. Ethan had run to her from the creek, his feet bare and dripping, eyes wide with fear. It's all right, Turner said gruffly. They're gone, but we should move on. He lifted Ethan into the wagon, then offered Clara his hand. She hesitated only a moment before taking it, his calloused palm warm and steady against hers. As they rolled away from the creek, Ethan pressed close to her side. Mr. Turner, he asked in a small voice, are those bad men going to come back? Turner glanced over at the boy. Maybe, but they'll have to go through me first, and I'm not easy to go through. You're strong, Ethan said with the simple faith of childhood, like my papa was. Something shifted in Turner's expression. Your papa sounds like he was a good man. He was, Ethan agreed. He used to say that strong men protect people who need protecting. Is that what you're doing? Turner's hands tightened on the reins. He was quiet so long, Clara thought he wouldn't answer. Finally, he said, Yeah, boy, I suppose that's what I'm doing. The rest of the journey passed in contemplative silence. Clara found herself studying Turner's profile in the fading light. This strange man who'd paid a fortune for 2 strangers and then defended them against crude threats. She'd thought she was beyond surprises, that grief and hardship had wrung them all out of her. But Caleb Turner was proving her wrong. As the wagon crested a final hill, he pointed ahead. There, Triple Creek Ranch. Clara's first glimpse of her new home came painted in the golden light of sunset. The main house sat on a gentle rise, a 2-story structure of logs and stone that looked as solid and enduring as the mountains beyond. Barns and outbuildings clustered nearby, and she could see cattle grazing in the distance. It was beautiful and isolated, and more than a little overwhelming. Welcome home, Turner said simply, and Clara wondered if those words might, someday, prove true. The Triple Creek Ranch came alive as their wagon rolled into the yard. Several men emerged from the bunkhouse, curiosity plain on their weathered faces. A large black man with graying temples stepped forward from the kitchen door, wiping his hands on a flour-dusted apron. Boss, wasn't expecting you back with company. His deep voice carried warmth despite the surprise. Cookie, this is Mrs. Whitmore and her son Ethan. They'll be staying on. Turner climbed down from the wagon, steadying it as Clara helped Ethan to the ground. Mrs. Whitmore will be helping with the house and such. The boy, too, when he's able. Cookie's knowing eyes took in their worn clothes and thin faces. "Welcome to Triple Creek. Ma'am, young Master Ethan." He smiled, revealing a gold tooth. "I'm Cookie. Been feeding these cowboys for near on 15 years. You hungry? Got beef and beans keeping warm. And I believe there might be a molasses cake hiding in the pantry." Ethan's eyes lit up at the mention of cake, the first genuine excitement Clara had seen from him all day. "Thank you, but Mr. Turner was kind enough to feed us in town," Clara replied, though the thought of molasses cake made her mouth water. "That was hours ago." Turner interjected, "Cookie, fix them something while I show them their quarters." "Miguel," he called to a young Mexican man hovering near the barn. "Help me with these supplies. Si, Senor Turner." Miguel hurried over, flashing a shy smile at Clara and Ethan. Turner led them toward the main house, Ethan's hand firmly in Clara's as they took in their surroundings. The house was even larger up close, built to last with thick timber walls and deep-set windows. The front door opened into a spacious main room dominated by a massive stone fireplace. "This is the main house," Turner explained unnecessarily. His discomfort was evident in the stiff set of his shoulders. "Kitchen's through there, parlor to the left. Your quarters are upstairs." He led them up a wide staircase, their footsteps echoing in the quiet house. At the landing, he gestured down a hallway. "My room's at the far end. These two," he opened a door to reveal a small but clean bedroom, "are for you." Clara stepped inside, taking in the simple furnishings, a bed with a quilted coverlet, a washstand, a small wardrobe, a rag rug covered the plank floor, and white curtains framed a window overlooking the ranch yard. "There's a smaller room through here," Turner continued, opening a connecting door. "Figured the boy might want his own space." Ethan peeked around Clara into the tiny room, which held a narrow bed, a 3-drawer chest, and shelves built into one wall. His eyes widened. "My own room? If your mother approves." Turner looked uncomfortable, as if unused to dealing with children. "There's bedding in the hall closet, washing-ups at the end of the hall. There's a proper bathtub. Outhouse is behind the kitchen for other needs." "Mr. Turner," Clara began, overwhelmed by the unexpected privacy and comfort. "This is more than—" "It's what you need." He cut her off. "You can't work properly without decent rest and a place to call your own. Now, I'll send Cookie up with some food. You'll start your duties tomorrow. Cookie can show you what needs doing. Any questions?" "No, sir. Thank you." He nodded curtly and left. Clara heard his boots on the stairs, then the front door closing. She sank onto the bed, suddenly exhausted. "Mama, look!" Ethan had discovered the window in his room looked out toward the mountains. "I can see forever. It's beautiful, sweetheart." She joined him, wrapping her arms around his thin shoulders. "Are you happy with your room?" "I never had my own room before." His voice was full of wonder. "Do you think Mr. Turner will let me keep it?" "For as long as we're here." "Yes, I hope we're here a long time." Ethan said softly, "I like it. It feels safe." Clara's throat tightened. Safe? When had they last felt truly safe? A knock interrupted her thoughts. Cookie appeared with a tray laden with food, not just the promised beef and beans, but fresh bread, butter, sliced tomatoes, and 2 generous pieces of molasses cake. "Figured you might want to eat in peace your first night," he said, setting the tray on the small table by the window. "Tomorrow you can join us in the kitchen if you like. We're not formal here. The hands eat at the big table, and you're welcome." "Thank you. Cookie, you're very kind." He studied her with wise eyes. "Ma'am, can I speak plain?" Clara nodded, tensing. "Mr. Turner's a good man. Hard, maybe, and not much for talk since his wife passed, but good down to his bones. You and the boy got nothing to fear from him. I'm beginning to see that. Glad to hear it. Now, there's hot water on the stove if you want to wash up. Clean clothes in that bundle, mister. Turner brought from town. Noticed your boy's shoes are about done for. Might be something in there for that, too." He smiled at Ethan. "You like horses?" young man. Yes, sir? Well, tomorrow after your ma says it's all right, you come find me. Got a mare about to foal any day now. Might like to see that. After Cookie left, Clara and Ethan ate in companionable silence. The food was simple but plentiful and well seasoned. The molasses cake was everything the smell had promised, moist and rich with spices. Can we really stay here, Mama? Ethan asked, licking the last crumbs from his fork. For 2 years at least. After that, Clara shrugged. We'll see what God has planned. She opened the bundle Turner had bought in town, gasping softly at the contents. 2 simple but sturdy dresses for her, work clothes for Ethan, undergarments for both of them, and at the bottom, a pair of boys' boots that looked to be just Ethan's size. Oh, Mama, look! Ethan held up the boots reverently. They're brand new. Indeed they are. Mr. Turner is very thoughtful. After washing up with the hot water Cookie had mentioned. Luxury after months of cold basin baths. Clara tucked Ethan into his new bed. He was asleep almost instantly, exhausted by the day's upheaval but with a small smile on his face. Clara returned to her own room, changed into one of the new nightgowns, and sat by the window looking out at the darkening ranch, somewhere in the distance. She heard cowboys singing around a campfire, their voices carrying on the clear night air. The sound was oddly comforting. She thought about Jake Brennan's ugly threats, about the auction platform and the terror of potentially losing Ethan. Then she thought about Caleb Turner's swift defense, the careful way he'd helped them from the wagon, the unexpected kindness of private rooms and new clothes. I bought your debt, not you, he'd said. But why? Loneliness might explain taking on a housekeeper, but not the fierce protection he'd already shown, not the generous wage he'd implied, not the way he'd looked when Ethan mentioned his father. A soft knock made her jump. Mrs. Whitmore. Turner's voice came through the door. Sorry to disturb. Just wanted to make sure you had everything you need. Clara opened the door, conscious of being in her nightgown but properly covered by a wrapper. Yes, thank you. The clothes, the rooms, it's all more than generous. He stood in the hallway looking uncomfortable, hat in his hands. In the lamplight, she could see silver threading through his dark hair more clearly. Good, that's good. I wanted to tell you, mornings start early here. Cookie serves breakfast at 5, but you can eat later if the boy needs more sleep. I'll be out with the hands most days, but Cookie knows what needs doing around the house. I'm used to early mornings. Mr. Turner. Right, of course. He turned his hat in his hands, clearly wanting to say something more. Those men today, Brennan and his lot, they're trouble. When you go to town, don't go alone. Take Cookie or one of the hands. You think they'll really cause problems? His jaw tightened. Brennan's used to getting what he wants. He wanted you for his saloon, and he's not the type to forget being thwarted. But you're under my protection now. That means something out here. Why? The question slipped out before she could stop it. Why did you pay so much for us? Tell me truly. Turner was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When he spoke, his voice was rough. My Mary. She couldn't have children. Broke her heart. She used to watch the immigrant wagons pass, see the families, the little ones. She'd have given anything. He stopped, cleared his throat. When I saw you on that platform, holding your boy, ready to fight the world to keep him safe, I saw what Mary would have done, Couldn't let them separate you. Couldn't let Brennan get his hands on you. Simple as that. It's not simple at all. Clara said softly, It's the kindest thing anyone's done for us since Samuel died. It's not kindness. His voice turned gruff again. I need help with the house. You need work and protection, fair trade. Clara recognized the deflection of a man unused to having his good deeds acknowledged. Whatever you call it, Mr. Turner, thank you. Caleb, he said abruptly. Mr. Turner was my father. Just Caleb is fine. Then you must call me Clara. He nodded, looking almost panicked by the informality. Right. Well, good night, Mrs. Clara. Good night, Caleb. She closed the door and leaned against it. listening to his footsteps retreat down the hall. Through her window, she could see stars beginning to emerge in the vast Texas sky. For the first time in 6 months, she felt something besides fear and grief. It might have been hope. In the room next door, she heard Ethan murmur in his sleep, dreaming perhaps of horses and eagles and molasses cake. Clara prepared for bed, saying prayers of gratitude for the first time in longer than she could remember. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. She'd have to prove her worth, earn her keep, navigate the complex dynamics of a ranch full of men. She'd have to stay wary of Brennan and whatever plans he might be hatching. She'd have to understand this complicated man who'd bought their freedom and asked nothing in return but honest work. But tonight, her son slept safely in his own bed, with new boots waiting for morning and the promise of seeing a foal born. Tonight, she had a full belly and clean clothes and a door she could close against the world. Tonight, that was enough. The rooster's crow pulled Clara from the deepest sleep she'd had in months. For a moment, she lay still, disoriented by the unfamiliar comfort of a proper bed. Then memory flooded back. The auction, Caleb Turner, Triple Creek Ranch, their new life. She dressed quickly in one of the new work dresses, a practical blue calico that fit better than anything she'd worn in years. Through the wall, she heard Ethan stirring and went to help him with his boots. "They're still new. Mama," he whispered, as if speaking too loudly might make them disappear. "That they are. Now come, let's not be late for our first day." The kitchen was already warm and bustling when they entered. Cookie stood at the massive stove, flipping flapjacks while bacon sizzled in a cast-iron skillet. 4 cowboys sat at the long wooden table, tin cups of coffee steaming in front of them. "Morning, ma'am." "Young sir." Cookie greeted them cheerfully. "Boys, mind your manners. We got ladies present now." The cowboys mumbled greetings, suddenly interested in their coffee. Clara recognized Miguel from yesterday. The others included 2 young brothers with matching sandy hair and freckles, and an older man with a grizzled beard. "This here's Tom and William Prescott." Cookie made introductions while setting plates in front of Clara and Ethan. "They're good boys when they remember to wash behind their ears. And that's old Pete. Don't let the beard fool you. He's only 40, but he's been looking 60 since he was 20. Pleased to meet you all," Clara said, helping Ethan cut his flapjacks. "Where's Mr. Turner?" Ethan asked, looking around. "Boss headed out before dawn." Tom, the elder Prescott brother, answered, "Checking the north pasture. We had some fence down last week. He usually takes breakfast out there." Cookie added, pouring Clara coffee without asking. "Man works too hard, if you ask me. Been worse since—" He trailed off, glancing at the men. "Since Mrs. Mary passed." Old Pete finished bluntly. "No use dancing around it. She's been gone 3 years come December." An uncomfortable silence fell. Clara broke it by asking, "What would be most helpful for me to do today? Cookie?" The cook's face brightened. "Well, the house needs attention, that's certain. Boss keeps his room tidy. But the rest, we do what we can, but none of us has the touch for proper housekeeping. Mary kept this place shining like a new penny." After breakfast, Cookie gave Clara a tour while Ethan tagged along, wide-eyed at the size of the house. The parlor was dusty but elegant, with furniture shipped from back east. Mary Turner's presence lingered in the carefully chosen fabrics and delicate touches now dulled by neglect. "Boss closed this room after she died," Cookie explained. "Uses the study for his evening reading now." The study was more lived in, with books lining the walls and papers scattered on a massive desk. Clara noted titles on agriculture, horse breeding, and, surprisingly, poetry. "Mr. Turner reads poetry?" she asked. Cookie smiled. "Mary got him started on it. Said a man needed culture out here in the wilderness. Don't think he's touched those books in a while, though." The rest of the morning flew by as Clara attacked the house with determined energy. She started with the kitchen, scrubbing surfaces that had seen only masculine attempts at cleanliness. Ethan helped where he could, carrying water and gathering eggs from the henhouse under Cookie's supervision. "Your boy's a natural with the chickens," Cookie observed when they paused for coffee. "Gentle-like. That's good. His father taught him to respect all creatures," Clara said, watching through the window as Ethan scattered feed for the hens. "Said the way a man treats animals tells you everything about his character. Smart man. Sorry for your loss." Clara nodded, accepting the simple sympathy. "Cookie, can I ask, what was she like, Mrs. Turner?" The big man's face softened. "Mary, she was sunshine in a dress. That woman. Tiny little thing, barely came up to the boss's shoulder, but she ran this ranch like a general. Had a laugh that could light up the whole valley. And Lord, she was kind. Used to doctor the hands when they got hurt. Teach the Mexican kids their letters. Take food to folks struggling through hard times. She sounds wonderful. She was, boss near died when we lost her. Fever came on sudden. One day she was laughing in this very kitchen. 3 days later." He shook his head. "We thought we'd lose him too, the way he grieved. Shut himself away for weeks. When he finally came out, he was different. Harder. Keeps to himself mostly now." Clara thought of the man who defended her yesterday, who'd bought new boots for a boy he didn't know, perhaps not as hard as he wanted people to believe. The afternoon brought a break in routine when Miguel appeared at the kitchen door. "Señora Clara, the mare, she is ready. Cookie said to fetch you and the boy." Ethan practically vibrated with excitement as they followed Miguel to the barn. In a clean stall filled with fresh straw, a beautiful chestnut mare lay on her side, her sides heaving with contractions. "Is she hurting?" Ethan whispered, concerned. "It's natural," Clara assured him, though she'd only witnessed a few animal births herself. "She's working hard to bring her baby into the world." They watched in hushed fascination as the mare labored. Miguel stayed close, speaking soft Spanish endearments to the horse. After what seemed like hours, but was probably less than one, tiny hooves appeared. "Mira!" Miguel exclaimed. "Look, she comes!" With a final effort, the mare delivered a wet, dark foal onto the straw. The baby horse lay still for a moment, then lifted its head, blinking in the afternoon light filtering through the barn. "Oh, Mama!" Ethan breathed, his eyes huge. "It's beautiful." The mare twisted around to nuzzle her foal, licking it clean with patient strokes. Within minutes, the baby was trying to stand on impossibly long, wobbly legs. "What do you think, boy?" They all turned to find Caleb standing in the stall doorway, dusty from his day's work, but smiling slightly at Ethan's obvious joy. "It's a miracle. Mr. Turner," Ethan exclaimed. Can I touch it?" "Not yet. Let Mama and baby get acquainted first. But in a few days, if you're gentle and Miguel says it's all right, you can help with the handling. A foal needs to get used to people early." "What will you name it?" Clara asked. "That's usually Miguel's privilege. He's got a gift with the horses." Caleb looked at his ranch hand. "What do you think?" Miguel studied the foal, now standing on shaky legs and searching for its first meal. "Esperanza," he said finally. "Hope. She brings hope." "No?" "Hope," Caleb repeated quietly. His eyes met Clara's across the stall, and something passed between them, understanding, perhaps, or recognition of their shared need for exactly that. "It's a good name." That evening, after a supper of Cookie's beef stew and cornbread, Clara found herself alone with Caleb on the front porch. Ethan had fallen asleep early, exhausted by the day's excitements, and the hands had retired to the bunkhouse. "He's a good boy," Caleb said, breaking the comfortable silence. "Respectful, curious about the right things." "Thank you. I worry sometimes that losing his father so young." Clara trailed off. "He's got you. That counts for a lot." Caleb leaned against the porch rail, looking out at the darkening sky. "I've been thinking about schooling. There's no proper school nearby, but Mary had books, primers and such. You're welcome to use them." "I'd be grateful." Samuel insisted Ethan learn his letters early. I've tried to keep up with it, but these last months? No need to explain. You did what you had to do to survive. He paused. Cookie says you worked wonders in the house today. Clara laughed softly. Hardly wonders. Just soap and water and elbow grease, though I hope you don't mind. I aired out the parlor. It seemed a shame to keep such a lovely room closed. She felt him tense beside her. Mary loved that room, he said quietly. Used to sit by the window in the evenings, doing her needlework. Said the light was perfect there. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. No, he cut her off, but gently. No, you're right. She wouldn't want it kept like a shrine. She'd say I was being foolish, wasting good space. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. She was practical like that, for all her fancy Eastern ways. They sat quietly for a while, listening to the night sounds. Crickets, a distant coyote, the soft lowing of cattle. Clara found herself oddly at peace, sitting here with this taciturn man who'd saved them from disaster. I should warn you, Caleb said suddenly. We'll need to go to town next week for supplies. All of us. I want you to get familiar with the merchants. And they need to know you're under my protection. But Brennan will likely be there. Clara's peace evaporated. Do you think he'll cause trouble? Not openly, not in daylight with witnesses, but he's not one to give up easily. Just stay close to me or Cookie. Don't let Ethan wander off. I won't. She shivered despite the warm evening. Caleb noticed and stood. It's getting late. You should rest. Tomorrow Cookie wants to show you the garden plot. Mary used to grow vegetables there. Might be good to get it going again if you're willing. I'd like that. Clara rose as well, smoothing her skirts. Caleb, thank you for everything. I know you say it's just a fair trade, but Clara. Her name sounded different in his deep voice, softer somehow. You're welcome here, both of you, for as long as you want to stay. Before she could respond, he'd stepped off the porch and headed toward the barn for a final check on the animals. Clara watched him go. This complicated man who kept his grief locked away but showed kindness in 100 practical ways. Inside, she checked on Ethan, smiling at how he'd kicked off his covers despite the cool night air. She tucked him back in, pressing a kiss to his forehead. He murmured something about horses and cakes but didn't wake, in her own room. Clara sat by the window brushing her hair, looking out at the vast Texas sky studded with more stars than she'd ever seen in town. Somewhere out there, Samuel lay in his grave, and she whispered a quiet prayer of thanks to him for their son, for the love they'd shared, for the strength he'd helped her find. Then she prayed for Caleb Turner, alone in his big house with his memories, for Cookie and Miguel and the Prescott boys and old Pete, for safety from Jake Brennan and his threats, for wisdom to navigate this new life, and finally, selfishly, she prayed that when their 2 years were up, they might have reason to stay. 2 weeks into their new life at Triple Creek Ranch, Clara had settled into a comfortable routine. She rose before dawn to help Cookie with breakfast, spent mornings cleaning and organizing the house, afternoons working in the revived garden, and evenings mending clothes or teaching Ethan from Mary Turner's collection of primers. This particular morning started like any other, until Ethan's excited shouts pierced the air. Mama, Mama, come quick! Clara dropped the bread dough she'd been kneading and ran outside, her heart pounding. She found Ethan near the corral where Miguel had been working with some of the younger horses. The boy stood frozen, pointing at something in the dust. The horses got spooked, Miguel explained quickly. And the paint mare, she broke through the fence. Little Ethan, he tried to calm her. Clara's blood ran cold as she saw what had happened. The mare, still agitated, pranced nervously nearby, and there on the ground lay a coiled rattlesnake, clearly disturbed by the commotion. Don't move, sweetheart, Clara said, forcing her voice to stay calm, though terror gripped her chest. Stay perfectly still. The snake's tail buzzed ominously. Ethan stood perhaps 6 feet from it, close enough that any sudden movement might provoke a strike. Clara's mind raced, calculating distances, knowing she was too far away to reach him safely. Then Caleb was there, appearing as if from nowhere. He moved with deliberate slowness, placing himself between Ethan and the snake. "Easy, boy," he murmured, though Clara wasn't sure if he was talking to Ethan or the snake. "Nobody needs to get hurt here. Miguel, get your rifle. Slow and easy. Si, jefe." "Ethan," Caleb continued in that same calm tone, "when I tell you, I want you to take 3 big steps backward. Don't run, just walk. Can you do that?" "Yes, sir," Ethan whispered, his face pale but trusting. "Good boy. On 3, 1, 2, 3. Ethan stepped backward as instructed. The snake, tracking the movement, shifted slightly, in one fluid motion. Caleb drew his pistol and fired. The snake's head disappeared in a spray of dust and venom. Then Ethan was in Clara's arms, shaking like a leaf. She held him tight, her own body trembling with delayed terror. "You did good, son," Caleb said, holstering his weapon. His hand came to rest on Ethan's shoulder, warm and reassuring. "Stayed calm, followed instructions. That's what saves lives out here." "I was trying to help with the mare," Ethan said, his voice muffled against Clara's dress. "I didn't see the snake until—" "Snakes don't announce themselves," Caleb interrupted gently. "That's why we're careful, why we look before we step. You'll remember next time, won't you?" Ethan nodded fervently. "Yes, sir, I promise." Clara finally found her voice. "Thank you. If you hadn't been here, but I was—" His gray eyes met hers, intense and unreadable. "That's what matters." Later, after Ethan had been soothed with a cup of sweetened milk and a molasses cookie, after Miguel had repaired the fence and disposed of the snake, Clara found Caleb in the barn checking on the new foal. "You saved his life," she said without preamble. He didn't look up from where he was examining the foal's legs. "It's my ranch, my responsibility to keep folks safe. It was more than that, and you know it." She moved closer, determined to make him understand her gratitude. "The way you protected him, calmed him. Caleb, I need to know. Why do you care so much about a boy who's nothing to you?" He straightened slowly, finally meeting her eyes. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, so quietly, she almost missed it. "He's not nothing. Neither of you are nothing." "But why?" she pressed. "You could have hired any housekeeper. You didn't need to take on a widow with a child, didn't need to pay so much, didn't need to—" Mary was pregnant when she died. The words fell between them like stones into still water. Clara's breath caught. "She didn't even know yet," he continued, his voice rough. "The doctor told me after, said the fever might not have taken her if her body hadn't been trying to protect." He stopped, jaw working. "Would have been about Ethan's age now, if things had been different." "Oh, Caleb." Clara's heart broke for him, for the double loss he'd endured. "I'm not trying to replace what I lost," he said quickly. "I know that's not possible, but when I saw you on that platform, ready to fight the world for your boy, when I see how he looks at you like you hung the moon and stars, maybe I just wanted to protect something good in this world. Lord knows there's little enough of it." Without thinking, Clara reached out and touched his arm. He went still under her hand, like a wild animal deciding whether to flee or accept comfort. "Mary was a fortunate woman," Clara said softly, "to be loved by a man with such a good heart." Something shifted in his expression, a vulnerability quickly hidden. "You should get back. Cookie will wonder where you've gone." Clara recognized the dismissal, the retreat behind his walls. She removed her hand but didn't immediately leave. "We're fortunate too. Ethan and I, more than you know." That evening brought new challenges. Tom Prescott rode in from town with mail and news that cast a shadow over the ranch. "Brennan's been talking. He reported over supper. Says Turner's gone soft, keeping a woman for— well, he's saying ugly things. Mr. Turner, things that ain't fit to repeat in mixed company." Caleb's expression darkened, but his voice remained level. "Let him talk. Men who know me know better." "Problem is," old Pete interjected, He's stirring up some of the rougher elements, says you embarrassed him, made him look weak. That kind of talk can lead to trouble. Clara felt ice in her veins. What kind of trouble? The men exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable discussing such matters with a lady present. The kind we'll handle if it comes. Caleb said firmly. Tom, I want you and William to start riding the fence lines in pairs. No one works alone until this blows over. Miguel, keep the horses closer to home. Cookie, I'll start packing iron when I go to the smokehouse. The cook said grimly. Won't be the first time. What about Clara and the boy? Old Pete asked. Brennan might try something when you're not around. They don't leave the ranch without me or one of you. Caleb's tone brooked no argument. And Clara, I'll teach you to shoot. Tomorrow. I know how, Clara said quietly. Samuel taught me. I'm not very good, but I can hit what I aim at if it's close enough. Caleb studied her with something like approval. Good. We'll practice anyway. Make sure you're comfortable with the weapons we have here. That night, Clara couldn't sleep. She stood by her window, watching clouds scud across the moon, when a soft knock came at her door. It's me. Caleb's voice came through the wood. Saw your light? She opened the door, wrapping her shawl tighter around her nightgown. I couldn't sleep. Too much thinking. I know the feeling. He stood in the hallway, fully dressed despite the late hour. I wanted to apologize for bringing trouble to your door. You came here for safety, and instead, you've given us a home. Clara interrupted. You've shown my son kindness and protection. You saved his life today. Whatever trouble Jake Brennan brings, it's not your fault. If something happens to either of you because of my choices, then it happens because evil men do evil things, not because good men try to stop them. She stepped into the hallway, closing the door behind her to keep from waking Ethan. I've seen what happens when no one stands up to men like Brennan. Samuel died because no one would stand with him against Hampton's land grab. You stood up for us when no one else would. I won't let you regret that. They stood close in the narrow hallway, the lamp casting dancing shadows on the walls. Clara could see the fatigue in his eyes, the weight of responsibility he carried. You're a remarkable woman. Clara Whitmore, he said softly. I'm a survivor. She corrected. There's a difference. No. His hand came up as if to touch her face, then dropped. No, it's more than that. Mary was a survivor too, but she had joy, light. I see that in you, even after all you've lost. It's remarkable. The air between them seemed to thicken, charged with possibility. Clara's heart beat faster, and she saw something flare in Caleb's eyes. Longing, perhaps, or recognition of what was growing between them. Then Ethan cried out in his sleep, breaking the spell. Clara turned immediately toward his door, but Caleb was already moving. Let me, he said. You checked on him last time. Clara watched from the doorway as Caleb entered Ethan's room, speaking softly to the boy who'd awakened from a nightmare. His large hands were gentle as he straightened the tangled covers. The snake can't hurt you, she heard him say. It's gone. You're safe here. Promise? Ethan's sleepy voice asked. I promise. I'll keep you and your mama safe. That's my job now. Like a papa would? Clara held her breath at the innocent question. Caleb was quiet for a long moment. Yeah, he finally said, his voice rough, like a papa would. When he emerged from Ethan's room, Clara saw the emotion he was trying to hide. Without thinking, she took his hand. Thank you, she whispered. He squeezed her fingers gently, then let go. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we practice shooting, and I want you sharp. As he walked away, Clara touched the hand he'd held, feeling the lingering warmth. Whatever storm was coming with Jake Brennan, they would weather it together. The three of them, the widow, the rancher, and the boy who was beginning to heal both their broken hearts. She returned to her bed, and this time, sleep came easier. In her dreams, she heard Ethan's laughter mixing with Caleb's rare smile, saw a future painted in the colors of hope and home and possibility. The snake had been a warning danger lurked in unexpected places, but today had also shown her something else. They were no longer alone. They had found their protector, and perhaps, if she dared to hope, something more. The storm arrived 3 days later. Not the trouble from Jake Brennan they'd been expecting, but a genuine tempest that rolled across the New Mexico plains with frightening fury. Clara had seen storms before, but nothing like this monster that turned the afternoon sky black as midnight. "Everyone inside," Caleb shouted over the rising wind. Helping Miguel and the Prescott brothers herd the horses into the barn. "Cookie, secure the hen house. Clara, get Ethan to the root cellar." But even as Clara grabbed Ethan's hand, she saw the danger. The wind had torn loose a section of barn roof, and the horses were panicking. One of them, the paint mare that had broken free days before, reared up and knocked Tom Prescott into the wall. "Tom!" William rushed to his brother's side as the horses stampeded toward the open barn door. Without thinking, Clara pushed Ethan toward Cookie. "Take him to the cellar." Then she ran toward the barn, grabbing a rope from the fence post as she went. "Clara, no!" Caleb's voice was nearly lost in the wind. But Clara had grown up around horses, and she knew panic when she saw it. The paint mare's eyes were wild with terror, and she was heading straight for the broken fence section. Beyond that lay ravines and rough country where she'd likely break a leg or worse. Clara swung the rope in a wide loop, muscle memory from childhood taking over. The lasso settled around the mare's neck on the first try. She dug her heels into the muddy ground, but the horse's momentum dragged her forward. Then Caleb was beside her, his hands joining hers on the rope. Together they fought to slow the mare, speaking soothing words that were whipped away by the wind. Miguel appeared on the horse's other side, grabbing her halter. "Easy, Bonita, easy," he crooned. "No one will hurt you." Between the three of them, they managed to calm the mare and lead her back to the barn. The other horses had been contained by old Pete and William, who'd left his dazed but conscious brother propped against a stall. "Inside, now," Caleb ordered, and this time no one argued. They made it to the house just as the full fury of the storm hit. Rain lashed the windows so hard Clara feared they might break. The wind howled like a living thing, seeking entry through every crack and crevice. In the kitchen, Cookie had lit several lamps against the unnatural darkness. Ethan sat at the table, trying to be brave but clearly frightened. Clara went to him immediately, wrapping him in her arms. "You were so brave," she murmured into his hair, helping Cookie like a big boy. "You went after the horses," he said accusingly. "You could have been hurt." "Sometimes we have to take risks to save what matters," she said, aware that Caleb was watching them from across the room. "The mare would have died out there," Caleb said quietly. "You saved her life." "We saved her," Clara corrected. Together. Something passed between them, acknowledgement of how well they'd worked as a team, how naturally they'd moved in concert. The moment stretched until Cookie cleared his throat. "If you folks are done making eyes at each other, we got a hurt man here needs tending." Tom Prescott sat on the bench, blood seeping from a gash on his forehead. Clara immediately went into action, calling for hot water and clean cloths. Her months of helping at the boarding house had included patching up injured cowboys. "Hold still," she told Tom, cleaning the wound with gentle efficiency. "You'll have a scar, but nothing that will ruin your good looks. Hear that, Will?" Tom managed a weak grin at his brother. "Still gonna be the handsome one." As Clara worked, the storm raged on. The house shook with each gust, and somewhere outside came the crash of something giving way. A shutter, perhaps, or part of a fence. "We're going to lose stock," old Pete muttered, peering out the window. "Cattle will drift with a storm like this." "Can't help that now," Caleb said. "We'll round up what we can when it passes." The lamp flickered as the wind found a gap in the walls. Ethan whimpered, and Clara saw him trying not to cry, before she could comfort him. Caleb moved to sit beside the boy. "You know what my Mary used to say about storms?" he asked. Ethan shook his head, fascinated despite his fear. She said storms were just God's way of reminding us we're not in charge. They come through, make a lot of noise, tear things up some, but then they pass, and the sun comes out, and we rebuild. And usually, things grow better after because the storm brought rain and cleared out the deadwood. Did Mrs. Mary like storms? A soft smile crossed Caleb's face. She'd stand on the porch and watch them come in. Said they were beautiful in their own way. Used to scare me senseless, seeing her out there with lightning crashing all around, but she'd just laugh and say God wouldn't strike down someone who appreciated his handiwork. Clara finished bandaging Tom's head, but her attention was on Caleb and Ethan. The boy had scooted closer to the man, finding comfort in his solid presence. I wish I could have met her, Ethan said. She would have loved you, Caleb said simply. She had a soft spot for brave boys. The storm continued for hours. They ate cold biscuits and dried meat. No one willing to attempt cooking with the wind threatening to tear the chimney off. As night fell, the violence began to ease, though rain still pounded the roof. I should check the animals, Caleb said, rising. Not alone, Clara said immediately. You just told everyone to stay in pairs, remember? He looked at her, something warming in his eyes. Worried about me? Yes, she said simply, surprising them both with her directness. I'll go with you, boss, Miguel offered, but Caleb shook his head. You and Pete check the bunkhouse. Make sure it's still sound. William, you stay with your brother. Cookie, keep the coffee hot. Clara, I'm coming with you, she said firmly. Ethan can stay with Cookie. Caleb looked like he wanted to argue, then nodded. Get a slicker from the mudroom. The wind nearly knocked Clara off her feet when they stepped outside. Even with the storm weakening, it was fierce. Caleb took her arm, steadying her as they fought their way to the barn. Inside, the horses huddled together, nervous but safe. The temporary patch on the roof had held, though water dripped through in several places. We were lucky, Caleb said, checking each stall. Could have been much worse. The garden will be ruined, Clara said, thinking of all her hard work. We'll replant. That's what we do out here. We endure. We rebuild. We go on. They stood close in the barn's relative shelter, rain drumming on the roof. Clara became acutely aware of Caleb's presence, the heat of him beside her, the way his wet shirt clung to his broad shoulders. Thank you, he said suddenly, for helping with the mare. That was brave. That was necessary. There's a difference. No. He turned to face her fully. You could have stayed safe with Ethan. Instead, you risked yourself for an animal that's not even yours. That's brave. Everything here is partly mine for the next 2 years, Clara said. You made sure of that when you bought our papers. This ranch, these animals, they're my responsibility too. Is that the only reason? Responsibility? The question hung between them, loaded with meaning. Clara's heart beat faster as she met his intense gaze. No, she admitted softly. I care about this place, about Cookie and Miguel and the others, about... She stopped, unable to finish. About, he prompted, stepping closer. The barn door crashed open, making them both jump. William Prescott stood there, water streaming from his hat. Boss, the creek's rising fast. If it jumps its banks, it'll take out the lower pasture fence for sure. The moment broken. Caleb shifted back into rancher mode. We'll deal with it in the morning. Too dangerous now. Everyone stays inside until daylight. They made their way back to the house, the almost moment between them swept away by the storm's fury. But Clara felt something had shifted. Some barrier had cracked like the thunder overhead. Inside, they found Ethan asleep on Cookie's lap, the big man looking slightly embarrassed but pleased. Boy was scared, he explained. Told him stories about when I was a chuck wagon cook on the cattle drives. Guess I bored him to sleep. Clara smiled, touching Cookie's shoulder in thanks before gently lifting her son. Caleb appeared at her side. Let me, he said, taking Ethan from her arms. The boy stirred but didn't wake, instinctively curling into Caleb's chest. Clara followed them upstairs, her heart full of emotions she couldn't name. In Ethan's room, Caleb laid him carefully on the bed while Clara removed his shoes and tucked the covers around him. They stood together looking down at the sleeping child, and Clara was struck by how right this felt. The three of them, weathering storms together. "He's starting to feel safe here," she whispered. "What about you?" Caleb asked. "Do you feel safe?" Clara looked up at him. This complicated man who'd saved them, protected them, shown them kindness they'd never expected to find again. "Yes," she said simply. "For the first time since Samuel died, I feel safe." Something flickered in Caleb's eyes. Pain, perhaps, at the mention of her late husband, or maybe understanding of the trust she was placing in him. "Good," he said roughly. "That's good." He turned to leave, but Clara caught his hand. "Caleb, wait." He stopped, but didn't turn back, his hand warm in hers. "What you're doing for us, what you've already done, I know you say it's just business, just a fair trade, but it's more than that, and we both know it." His fingers tightened around hers. "Clara, I'm not asking for anything," she said quickly. "I just wanted you to know that we see it. Ethan and I, we see who you really are beneath all that." She searched for the right word. "Armor?" He turned then, and the look in his eyes made her breath catch. For a moment, she thought he might kiss her. The air between them crackled like lightning. Then the house shook with a particularly violent gust of wind. Breaking the spell, Caleb stepped back, gently releasing her hand. "You should rest," he said. "Tomorrow will bring plenty of work." After he left, Clara stood in the darkened hallway, her hand still warm from his touch. Outside, the storm was finally beginning to pass, but inside her heart, she suspected another storm was just beginning. The acrid smell of smoke pulled Clara from her sleep. For a moment, she lay confused in the pre-dawn darkness. Then the shouting started. "Fire! Fire in the barn!" She threw on her wrapper and boots, racing downstairs to find chaos. Through the windows, orange flames licked at the barn's roof, casting hellish shadows across the yard. The horses' terrified screams pierced the night. Caleb was already outside, organizing the men into a bucket brigade from the well. "Miguel, get those horses out! Tom! William! Wet down the hay storage!" Clara pushed Ethan toward Cookie, who stood in the doorway. "Keep him inside." "Mama, no!" Ethan cried, but Clara was already running toward the barn. The heat hit her like a physical blow. Smoke billowed out as Miguel struggled to lead a panicked horse from its stall. 3 more horses remained inside, including the mare and her foal. Without hesitation, Clara plunged into the smoke-filled barn. Her eyes streamed tears as she fumbled for the foal's stall. The baby horse was pressed against the back wall, too terrified to move, while its mother reared and struck at the stall door. "Easy, girl, easy." Clara coughed, grabbing a feed sack to cover the mare's eyes. "Blinded." The horse calmed slightly, allowing Clara to lead her out. The foal followed its mother instinctively. She just cleared the barn door when a figure on horseback appeared in the firelight. Jake Brennan, with 6 armed men behind him. "Well, well," Brennan drawled, not dismounting. "Looks like you got yourself a problem. Turner." Caleb stepped forward, his face hard as granite in the dancing light. "Get off my land, Brennan. Now, that's no way to treat neighbors come to help." Brennan's smile was ugly. "Course, we might be more motivated to help if you were willing to reconsider my offer. The woman and boy for, let's say, $100 and my assistance with your fire." "The only thing you'll get from me is a bullet if you're not gone in 10 seconds. Caleb growled. Clara felt rage rise in her chest. The fire, it was no accident. Brennan had done this, she was sure of it. "You bastard," she spat, stepping forward despite the restraining hand Caleb put on her arm. "You set this fire. That's a serious accusation. Mrs. Whitmore." Brennan's eyes glittered dangerously. "Can't prove what you can't see, though fires do start so easily out here. Dry wood, a carelessly dropped cigarette." One of his men snickered, and Clara saw red. Before anyone could stop her, she'd grabbed a bucket from the ground and hurled its contents Unfortunately, water. Not something more fitting at Brennan. It caught him full in the face, drenching him. For a moment, everything stopped. Even the fire seemed to pause in its destruction. Then Brennan wiped his face slowly, his expression murderous. "You're going to regret that, woman. The lady's got nothing to regret," a new voice said. Old Pete stepped out of the shadows. Rifle in hand, Cookie appeared from the other side, similarly armed. The Prescott brothers flanked them, and Miguel held a shotgun with steady hands. "Seems you're outnumbered?" "Brennan," Caleb said quietly. "And we've got a fire to fight, so I'll say it one more time. Get off my land." Brennan's hand twitched toward his gun, but the click of multiple weapons cocking stopped him. "This ain't over, Turner, not by a long shot." He wheeled his horse around. "You can't protect them forever, and next time might be more than just a barn that burns." After they'd gone, Caleb turned back to the fire. "Less talking, more water. We can still save most of it." They fought the blaze for what seemed like hours. Clara worked alongside the men, her dress soaked and filthy, her hands blistered from handling rough buckets. When the fire was finally contained, having consumed only one corner of the barn, they all collapsed in exhaustion. Dawn was breaking, revealing the damage. The barn still stood, but would need significant repairs. They'd lost tack and feed, but miraculously, no animals had been hurt. "Could have been worse," Cookie said, his face streaked with soot. "Will be worse, if Brennan has his way," Old Pete replied grimly. Caleb stood surveying the damage, his expression unreadable. Clara approached him hesitantly. "I'm sorry," she said. "If I hadn't thrown that water, you've got nothing to apologize for." His voice was rough with smoke and exhaustion. "Man had it coming. This is my fault. Brennan's doing this because of me, because you wouldn't let him." Caleb turned to her then, his gray eyes fierce. "This is Brennan's fault, his choices, his evil, not yours. Never yours. But your barn can be rebuilt. You and Ethan can't be replaced." He paused, seeming to realize what he'd said. "I mean, it would be inconvenient to find another housekeeper, despite everything." Clara felt her lips twitch. "Inconvenient? Of course." "Mama!" Ethan's voice broke the moment. He ran to her, Cookie unable to hold him back any longer. "Are you hurt? You're all dirty." "I'm fine, sweetheart." She hugged him, grimacing at her soot-covered state. "Just a little messy." "Was it really Mr. Brennan who started the fire?" Ethan asked, his young face serious. The adults exchanged glances. Caleb knelt down to Ethan's level. "We can't prove it, son, but yes, I believe he did." "Then he's a bad man. Papa said bad men do bad things because they're weak inside." "Your papa was a smart man," Caleb agreed. "And you know what we do about bad men? We stand up to them," Ethan said firmly, "even when it's scary." "That's right, and that's what we're going to do. All of us, together." The rest of the day was spent in cleanup and temporary repairs. The sheriff came out from town, looked around, and declared there was no evidence of arson, though his reluctance to challenge Brennan was obvious. "Man's got powerful friends," he told Caleb privately. "Judge owes him money. Mayor does business with him. You'd need witnesses to make anything stick." "I understand," Caleb said coldly. "We'll handle our own protection." That evening, exhausted and disheartened, Clara found herself sitting on the porch steps, watching the sunset paint the mountains purple and gold. Her hands were wrapped in bandages. Her whole body ached, but it was her heart that hurt most. She'd brought destruction to this place that had sheltered them. Caleb emerged from the house and sat beside her, close enough that she could feel his warmth. "You should be resting," he said. "So should you." They sat in silence for a while, watching the day die. "I keep thinking about what Ethan said." Clara finally spoke. "About standing up to bad men even when it's scary. But what if standing up to them costs too much? What if people get hurt because of me? People get hurt because evil exists in the world." Caleb replied, "The question is whether we let it win, and if next time it's the house, or if someone gets killed, Caleb was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to face her fully. "Clara, I need you to understand something. When I bought your papers, when I brought you here, I made a choice. Not just to give you work, but to stand between you and harm. That's not a choice I made lightly, and it's not one I'll back away from because Jake Brennan throws a tantrum. But why?" The question she'd asked so many times. "Why does it matter so much to you?" He looked away, jaw working. When he spoke, his voice was low and rough. "Because I've already lost everything that mattered once. I won't stand by and watch it happen to someone else, not when I can prevent it. We're not your responsibility." "Yes, you are." The words came out fierce, almost angry. "You became my responsibility the moment I stood up in that crowd. Maybe before that, maybe the moment I saw you holding your boy, ready to face hell itself to keep him safe. I knew then I couldn't let them separate you. Couldn't let Brennan get his filthy hands on you." Clara's breath caught. "Caleb?" "And somewhere along the way," he continued, quieter now, "you stopped being a responsibility and started being—" He paused, struggling for words. "Started being important. Both of you." The admission hung between them like morning mist, delicate and precious. Clara's heart pounded as she reached out, covering his hand with her bandaged one. "You're important to us, too," she whispered. "More than you know." He turned his hand palm up, carefully cradling her injured fingers. "Your hands will heal." "Everything heals, given time and care." Their eyes met and held. The air between them sparked with possibility, with words unspoken but understood, slowly, carefully. Caleb lifted her hand and pressed his lips to her bandaged palm. "Mama, Mr. Caleb!" Ethan's voice broke the spell. He burst through the door, Cookie behind him. "Cookie says we're having a meeting." Indeed, the ranch hands were gathering in the main room. Cookie had made coffee and set out cold biscuits. The men looked grim but determined. "Here's how I see it," Old Pete began without preamble. "Brennan's declared war. We can either wait for his next move, or we can take the fight to him. Not looking for a war," Caleb said firmly, "but we'll be ready for one if it comes. From now on, nobody rides alone. We post guards at night. And Clara, you and Ethan don't leave the ranch without armed escort. I can help stand guard," Clara offered. "I told you I can shoot." "So can I," Ethan piped up. "Well, I can learn." Despite the seriousness, several men smiled. Caleb ruffled the boy's hair. "Maybe when you're older, son. For now, your job is to help your mother and stay alert. You see anything unusual, you tell an adult right away. Can you do that?" "Yes, sir." They talked strategy until full dark, the ranch becoming an armed camp. As the meeting broke up, Clara noticed how naturally the men looked to Caleb for leadership, how protective they'd become of her and Ethan. This wasn't just about wages anymore. They'd become family. Later, after Ethan was asleep and the first guard shift was in place, Clara found herself at her window, looking out at the partially burned barn. In the moonlight, she could see Caleb walking the perimeter, checking defenses. A soft knock at her door made her turn. "Come in." Cookie entered, carrying a small pot of salve. "For your hands," he explained. "My grandmother's recipe. Works wonders on burns." "Thank you." Clara accepted the pot gratefully. "Cookie, can I ask you something?" "Course." "How long have you known Caleb?" Cookie smiled. "Since he wasn't much older than your boy. His daddy hired me when Caleb was 12. Watched him grow from a scrawny kid to the man he is now." "What was he like before Mary died?" "Lighter," Cookie said after a moment. "Quicker to laugh. Mary brought out the joy in him. When she passed," he shook his head. "Never seen a man grieve so hard. Thought we'd lose him too for a while there. He'd sit in that parlor for hours, just staring at her chair. But he survived. Body did. Spirit's been slower to heal, until recently." Cookie gave her a meaningful look. "Man's different since you and the boy came. More like his old self. Got something to protect again. Something to fight for. Makes a difference." After Cookie left, Clara treated her hands with the salve, thinking about his words. Through her window, she could still see Caleb standing guard, a solid shadow against the night. Protecting what was his, protecting them. She thought about the feel of his lips on her palm, the fierce declaration that they were important to him. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new threats from Brennan. But tonight, despite the danger, Clara felt something she hadn't experienced in a long time. Hope, and maybe, just maybe, the stirring of something deeper, something that had nothing to do with gratitude or convenience, and everything to do with the way her heart raced when Caleb Turner looked at her like she was worth fighting for. 3 weeks after the fire, the morning dawned clear and bright. Clara stood beneath the old oak tree behind the house, wearing her best dress, the blue calico Caleb had bought that first day, now precious to her. Ethan fidgeted beside her in his Sunday clothes, his hair slicked down with water. Before them, Reverend Thompson from Red Rock held his worn Bible, smiling kindly. Around them gathered the entire population of Triple Creek Ranch, Cookie beaming like a proud father, Miguel holding wildflowers picked for the occasion, the Prescott brothers grinning, and old Pete trying to look stern but failing. And Caleb. Caleb stood beside her, tall and strong in his black suit, his gray eyes soft as they met hers. Dearly beloved, Reverend Thompson began, we are gathered here under God's wide sky to witness the union of Caleb Turner and Clara Whitmore. The ceremony was simple, the words traditional, but Clara felt each one settle into her heart like a blessing when Caleb took her hand to slip on the plain gold band, Mary's ring, which he'd asked her to wear with a vulnerability that had made her cry. His fingers trembled slightly. Do you, Caleb, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, for better or worse, as long as you both shall live? I do. His voice was steady, sure, his eyes never leaving hers. Do you, Clara, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? I do, she whispered, then stronger. I do. Then, by the power vested in me by the territory of New Mexico, I pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride. Caleb cupped her face gently, as if she were something precious and breakable. The kiss was soft, a promise more than a passion, but Clara felt it to her toes. Can I call you Pa now? Ethan's voice piped up the moment they parted. Laughter rippled through the gathering. Caleb knelt down to Ethan's level, his expression serious. I'd be honored if you would, son. Ethan threw his arms around Caleb's neck, and Clara saw her new husband's eyes close as he held the boy tight. When he stood, lifting Ethan with him, they were truly a family. The celebration that followed was joyful but subdued. They were still on guard, still watching for Brennan's next move. But for now, for this moment, they allowed themselves happiness. Cookie had outdone himself with the wedding feast. There was roasted beef, fresh bread, vegetables from the slowly recovering garden, and a cake that must have used up their sugar stores for a month. Speech, Tom Prescott called out, raising his glass of Cookie's special punch. Caleb stood, looking uncomfortable but determined. I'm not much for speeches, he began, then looked down at Clara. But I want to say thank you to all of you for standing by us, for fighting for what's right. This ranch, this family we've built here, it's worth protecting, and today I gain not just a wife, but a son. That's worth more than all the cattle in Texas. Here, here, the men chorused. Later, as the sun set and the hands drifted back to their evening chores, Clara found herself alone with her husband on the porch. The word still felt new, precious. Husband. Any regrets? Caleb asked quietly. Only that Samuel couldn't see this. Clara answered honestly. He would have liked you. Would have been glad to know Ethan had a father again. I'll do right by him, Caleb promised. By both of you. I know you will. She leaned into his side, feeling his arm come around her. Caleb, what made you decide? To ask me, I mean, after everything with Brennan. Because of everything with Brennan, he corrected. When I saw you throw that water in his face, when I watched you run into a burning barn to save horses that weren't even yours, I realized something. What? That I didn't want to face whatever comes next alone. That somewhere between that auction platform and now, you became the person I want beside me, not just for Ethan, not just for the ranch, but for me. Clara's heart swelled. I love you, she said simply. I didn't expect to, didn't think I could love again after Samuel, but I do, and I love you. Caleb replied, the words rusty but sincere. Both of you. My family. They were still sitting there, watching stars appear in the darkening sky, when the sound of approaching horses made them both tense. But it was only Sheriff Watson from town, looking tired and relieved. Evening, Mr. and Mrs. Turner, he greeted, tipping his hat. Sorry to intrude, but thought you'd want to know right away. Jake Brennan's been arrested. Clara gasped. What? How? Seems one of his own men turned on him. Fellow named Dobbs said his conscience got the better of him. Testified that Brennan ordered the fire set, been planning worse. Besides, Judge had no choice but to act, especially when 2 more of Brennan's gang confirmed the story to save their own hides. Is it over then? Clara hardly dared hope. Brennan's headed for federal prison. His saloon's been shut down. The girls there given train fare to wherever they want to go. Yeah, I'd say it's over. After the sheriff left, Clara and Caleb sat in stunned silence. Then Ethan burst through the door. Cookie says, Mr. Brennan's going to jail. Is it true? Are we safe now? Yes, son, Caleb said, pulling the boy onto his lap. We're safe. Good, Ethan said firmly. Because I don't want anything to happen to my family. My family. The words settled around them like a blessing. That night, Clara moved her few belongings into Caleb's room. Their room now. As she brushed out her hair, Caleb watched from the bed with an expression of wonder. I never thought, he began, then stopped. What? After Mary died, I never thought I'd have this again. A wife, a son, a reason to make the ranch more than just a business. You've given me back my life. Clara. She set down the brush and went to him, taking his face in her hands. And you've given us ours, a home, safety, love. We saved each other. Caleb Turner. The kiss that followed was different from their wedding kiss. Deeper, hungrier, full of promise for all the years ahead. When dawn broke over Triple Creek Ranch, it illuminated a scene of peace. The partially rebuilt barn stood strong against the sky. Cattle grazed in the distance, in the kitchen. Cookie hummed while starting breakfast. The Prescott brothers argued good-naturedly over whose turn it was to muck stalls. Old Pete sat on the bunkhouse step, whittling and keeping lazy watch. And in the main house, a family woke to their first full day together. Ethan bounced on his parents' bed, too excited to let them sleep late, even on the day after their wedding. Can we go see Esperanza's foal? Can I help with the horses today? Cookie said he'd teach me to make biscuits. One thing at a time, son. Caleb laughed, catching the boy and tickling him until he squealed. Clara watched them with her heart full to bursting. 6 months ago, she'd stood on an auction platform, certain her life was over. Now she had a husband who loved her, a son who was thriving, a home that was truly theirs. What are you thinking? Caleb asked, catching her expression. Just that Mary was right, Clara said softly. About storms clearing out the deadwood, making room for things to grow better. We weathered the storm, all of us, and look what grew from it. Caleb reached for her hand, linking their fingers together. His wedding ring caught the morning light, matching hers. A family, he said simply. We grew a family. Outside, Cookie rang the breakfast bell. Ethan scrambled off the bed, racing for the door. Come on, I'm starving. Clara and Caleb followed more slowly, hands still linked. At the top of the stairs, Caleb paused, looking down at the home that was no longer empty, no longer haunted by loss. Welcome home, Mrs. Turner, he said softly. Welcome home, "Mr. Turner," she replied, and together they went down to join their son for breakfast, the first of thousands they would share as a family. The ranch sprawled around them under the endless New Mexico sky, no longer just a place of business or refuge, but a home built on love, courage, and the unshakable bonds of the family they'd chosen. In the kitchen, surrounded by the cheerful chaos of their extended ranch family, Clara met Caleb's eyes across the table. He smiled, that rare, precious smile that transformed his weathered face, and she knew with certainty that they'd found something worth more than gold or cattle or land. They'd found each other. They'd found home. And in the wild, untamed territory of New Mexico, in the year 1884, that was the greatest treasure of all. Thank you so much for listening to this story from the Wild West. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Please share in the comments below so we can connect. Don't forget to subscribe to the From Wild West channel and let me know your thoughts on Clara and Caleb's journey. What part of their story touched your heart the most? Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.